Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. Joining me on the podcast today are Michelle and Alex Gage of Michelle Gage Interiors and Business Measurements. We're going to be focusing our attention on the need for business financial measurements that allow a business to know where they are and to use that data to make decisions on where they're going. If you've been listening to my podcast for any time, you know how much I focus on profitability, hence the name of the podcast. And as well as the importance of not only knowing your numbers, but knowing what they're telling you. The story of your numbers, if you will. I've actually done quite a few trainings with the title, The Story of Your Numbers. What Michelle and Alex have created is a dashboard that will help you know your numbers at a glance whenever you want. And knowledge is empowering. No matter where you are with your financials, listen in today. And don't forget to go to my website and check out the Understanding Your Financials course and the Master Your Profit course to really understand what all the numbers are telling you. Enjoy the podcast. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Alex. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Good. Well, I am excited to have a conversation with you both today about business measurements. And Alex had reached out to me a while back, and we were able to connect and go through an online demo. And I was really impressed and thought that there was a lot of great information. As you all know, I'm all about the numbers and all about the financials and making sure that we understand. It doesn't do us any good to run a business if we don't even know if we're making money at it, or how to measure it. And so that is super important to me, and I know that it is to the two of you. And so thank you both again for coming on and being willing to talk through this entire journey. I don't want us to just focus on the business measurements without talking about what it was that got us there, right, or got you there. Because I think it's understanding Michelle's journey in the design world that made it even necessary for Alex to help create the solution to your problem. Michelle, can you start by just telling us about how you started your interiors business, a little bit of when you started, how long you've been in business, what you do, that type of thing?
So I started my business at the end of 2016. I was working for a corporate retailer. I thought I was at my dream job, and I truly loved the work I was doing, but I really had a passion in having my own business and having that business be interior design. I've always been very into numbers when it comes to finances, not so much when it comes to, math in school, but when it comes to finances, I'm very into the numbers. And I knew that when I left my job, I wanted to comp the salary I was making previously at my corporate career. And to do that your first year is a little difficult when you're used to making a salary and you're used to getting paid every 2 weeks. So I actually started from day one on my own with an Excel spreadsheet where I would track the money that I brought in every single day. Some days there was nothing. Some days, it was a larger number. But to see where I flushed out for that 2-week time period. In doing that, I could kind of keep track of my own projections for the year and see if I was on track to make what I was making at my previous corporate job. It became extremely tedious as the business grew to keep track of every dollar in and every dollar out. And I found that I was accounting every single day.
Especially if you're doing it all in a spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, it was a little short-sighted in how I initially set it up. And it wasn't set up for long-term growth. It was set up for, day-to-day management, and I could get a little bit of a pulse on where I would flush out for the year. But I never wanted to be in March curious about what I'd make come December.
Let's stop right there for a minute, because I'll tell you that's the same way I started when I did my business back in 2000. I managed everything through an Excel spreadsheet because at the time you're thinking, certainly I can wrap my arms around this. I don't even know what I don't know. I don't even know the numbers I need to know at that point. So I'm just going to keep up with what I do know. Like, what are the numbers that I can handle? And that's easy enough to compare, here's the income or here's the check I got. I was even, going as far as here's the client, here's the amount, here's the check number, all those types of things that we would keep in a normal check registry. I was
Right.
keeping up with those in an Excel spreadsheet. And I know that there are many people who are still doing that. And I know that
Hmm.
because I teach so many classes and courses, and I'm always talking about finances, and I ask them who's still doing it, and hands go up. But
Right.
you're right. Unless you are really an Excel guru, it is not easy to have Excel do the in-depth reporting or the in-depth analysis that we might be able to do in, let's say, a QuickBooks or a Sage or a FreshBooks or some other type of accounting software. And I know, having built accounting software for 10 years, which is what I did, when I first started with Dun& Bradstreet, I remember doing all the numbers and going, okay, now how do I analyze this? And then I was, well,
Right. What do I
okay,
do
so
with
now I'm
these?
kind of stuck. Or like you said, being able to go back and look at what was this like in March of the year before, especially as time went on. But I don't want anybody listening today who is keeping up with everything in Excel to think, oh my gosh, this isn't the podcast for me. This is absolutely the podcast for you. And for those of you that maybe have moved forward from that and are keeping your numbers in QuickBooks or some type of accounting package, I want you to know this is still for you. Again, we don't know what we don't know. I applaud that you even started with Excel, because there are plenty of people who start with nothing and then a year
Right.
out have to go kind of recreate all of the financial stuff from a shoebox or whatever, the proverbial shoebox, and go hand it to the accountant and hope they can make some
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
Right. And that was a position I never wanted to be in. I always wanted to know what I was bringing in. I had, a mortgage, I had bills to pay. It wasn't okay for me to just kind of sit back and hope the numbers worked themselves out come tax time. But to your point, yes, like it wasn't built to scale. So great to do it in the beginning, but I was doing the math. I'm not an Excel guru personally. Alex is, but I was doing the math in each line, and it was just becoming extremely time consuming to the point where I wasn't working on the business as much as I was working in the
But
business.
one thing that I love about you even doing it that way, and I certainly don't suggest that if people haven't started off doing every detail in Excel that they go back and do that now. But I am saying there was a huge benefit to that. And what it was a couple of things. Number one, it made you acutely aware of every number in and every number out, right? So I think I know a lot of times when I'm teaching people how to do their financials and profit first and all the things that I teach them about analyzing and knowing and understanding the numbers, sometimes they get really frustrated with me, and they're really frustrated with the process. And what they say is something along the lines of, don't I have a bookkeeper and an accountant or a financial analyst
Right.
who can do this for me? And my answer is always, sure, you do. But you've got to know what to do and how to do it so that you can understand. Otherwise, you don't understand any numbers, any reports. They're just giving you a bunch of gobbledygook that is in number form. And it's like reading a foreign language. You look at it and go, yeah, you gave it to me, check, and you move on. But by forcing yourself to work on it, to capture it, to write it down, again, to even realize what you don't know, I think is an extreme learning opportunity. And it sounds like you took that to heart, right? You first realized,
Definitely.
okay, there's a lot of work to keep up with the numbers. Number two, oh, snap, I don't know how to analyze this because my Excel maybe is limited in what I can do, especially if you don't even know how to do sums and be able to build formulas in there. If you're having to add and subtract to physically
Hmm.
do the numbers, that's a whole different thing. And then the overwhelming amount of numbers and knowing how to pull them together. So I love that you at least learned some of it. It was enough of rolling up your sleeves to realize this wasn't sustainable.
Well, and you know what it really did is it made me know if I had to go after more work
Yeah.
to hit that number. If my number was looking lower than what I would have been making at my corporate job previously, I knew I had to do, I was doing a handful of different design related things, whether it was working with clients or writing design trend articles. I knew I just have to write one more article to make this work. So it did hold me accountable, but I was so used to getting reports in my buying job. The corporate job was a buying role. I was so used to having reports presented to me. And yes, I was then forced to analyze the data myself. But, being a small business, you don't have that luxury. Nobody's creating reports for you. So, fast forward to like 2018 when Alex saw me struggle so much with this. And he's like, I think I can give you those reports you were missing.
Just to touch on that for a minute, it is really nice to have somebody hand you the reports. if you know what you're looking at. But also realizing in that moment, there's a data capture piece, then there's the data analyzation, and then there's data reporting. And they're kind of three separate pieces to the whole puzzle, right? So you're capturing, but you might not be analyzing and reporting. Here's the other thing I want to talk about, why it's so important to even data capture for anybody who's out there who's maybe somewhere on this continuum, right? You made the point, and I want to highlight it and put the big exclamation on profit first and the master your profit and all of that exclamation behind it. And it is this: when you have a goal and you're measuring to goal, it's easier to achieve the goal. And, right. Absolutely. And so I know a lot of people, when we first start our business, I was guilty of this. I started my business without having a very firm sales goal for each month, each day, each week, each year, whatever. I kind of took what came to me at the very beginning instead of going after what I needed to meet my goal. And it wasn't until I really dug into all of my numbers and realized, to your point, I need to replace a corporate salary, or I need to make X amount. And then I had a goal, like I could divide it down, and I knew this is how often I'm working. This is the amount of money I need to make. This is what I need to track to at least one item. And I work with a lot of people that when they're first starting, they don't even know. Like, they come to me and I'll say, what salary do you, like, what is the salary goal?
And right. What do you need to live?
And they don't know.
Right.
Or they say, I'll just take what I get. But then it's always, it's not enough. It's not enough. And so I like that you at least had a goal of, here's what I'd like to at least match
comp my salary from
what I
last
had
year.
prior to. And that gives you a little bit of a drive to even capture the numbers, analyze the numbers, look at the numbers, because you're seeing how close you are and how much more you have to do. And then later, you know, we can dig down into more of the details. I need 2 whole house jobs. I need 3 of these. I need 1 of these. But at the beginning, it's just, I could write another article. I could take 1 more bookcase refresh, like whatever.
Exactly. Or things are good. I can take my vacation with a little bit of a relaxed attitude and not feel like that week I'm off, I'm not making money, because I made it before I left. And I have a record of that to say, hey, girl, you're good. Go on that vacation, enjoy it. The money is already there. It doesn't come every 2 weeks in the same increment that you're used to, but it's there and you've made it. So, you know, enjoy what you've done and, you know, kick your feet up a little.
And when we work corporate, you know, I did that as well, is it's very steady. Here's what you get all the time. Now, one of the things I teach my clients to do is how to make it steady as well, even when we're in an unsteady income environment. Because we have the ups and downs and the waves and all of that, and even more so with all of the different things that have been happening in 2020 with business. But it's never really every 2 weeks somebody says, oh, could I please pay your business to keep you on target? That's not how that works, right? But there is a way to manage the money to make that happen. But it does change your mindset, and you really have to look at what are the ups, what are the downs. Like, I know in historically, January and February are usually slower unless you did all the work in October, November, and December to get January and February set. You know, having been in the industry 21 years, June, July are quite often slow because everybody's on vacation. And based on where you live, August could be slow. I'm down in the South. We go back to school the first week of August. The phones start ringing when the kids get on the bus. You know, as you move up that northern seaboard, it's moving more into right after Labor Day that the phone starts ringing. Like, I know the cycles. Now, this year, the cycles all been thrown up and it's falling down in a weird way. It just is what it is. However, doing what we've all been talking about, kind of knowing your numbers and knowing how they all pan out, you still can adjust and move. Michelle, tell me a little bit, all right, as we've done the fast forward, we've kind of broken down all of that. When did you start feeling the pain, and what was the pain that you felt that maybe Excel spreadsheets or even just QuickBooks? Like, when did you move to QuickBooks out of the Excel spreadsheet?
So I want to say we got QuickBooks maybe about 1.5 years, 2 years into the business. In hindsight, I wish I had set that up sooner, and I wish I had set separate bank accounts up sooner. Those would be my 2 big financial learns. You know, we kept the money separate, but just a completely separate account, separate bank.
Well, you know, I'm going to be a high five and a hallelujah on that. So I actually worked with a company just yesterday, that is starting her own she's doing some shifting in business and is starting another company. And the very first thing I said to her is, I want your QuickBooks set up. I want the chart of accounts set up. I need a minimum of 3 bank accounts. We'll go to 5 or 6, but we're starting with 3. And here's the 3, and here's how they're used, and here's what's done. I need 2 credit cards, one attached to this account. One, like, I gave her the whole framework. This is where you start. She's like, but I don't have. We start here. Go to the bank, do this, connect this to QuickBooks. This is the outline. This is the minimum viable product.
Right. She will be coming back and thanking you tenfold later. Yeah. That is my biggest piece of advice to anyone starting a business is you might not have the money to put in that bank account. You might not be using that credit card right away, but just set it up, because untangling the finances is really difficult.
You know what's so interesting to that point, Michelle, is we talk about commingling funds. Don't commingle funds. And we always think about commingling funds with our personal funds and our business funds. But when we put our funds for a cost of goods in with our operating expense funds, we're actually commingling funds. We're just commingling funds that are meant to support our clients and vendors, the payment of for that client, with our operating funds. It's just a different level of commingling. So if we cannot commingle personal and business, and we cannot commingle due to somebody else and due to me, we're going to be much better off. And it is easier because you set up the processes to make it work through that.
And Alex has that set up with his business measurement system where it can, identify the type of charge, which is really fantastic. But yes, to your original question, what was kind of our breaking point? When did Alex kind of like come in and say, all right, no more working till 11 on the books. Like, we got to figure this out, was when I started placing orders for clients. So when I started my business, yeah. It's a whole nother arm to the business, and you don't know what you're getting into. I started my business at 26, and I was doing strictly design work, and I was having clients place the orders on their own. They were kind of managing that execution end of it. But it was a little hairy and a little dicey, and it didn't allow me to be full service, which is what I wanted to do. So as I started doing that, my first big couple of clients came in, and they, assumed I was placing orders for them. Sure, of course I do that. And I would start to shop trade, which, helped to expand the business. That's when everything got just really, really too much for me to manage in Excel by myself. It was just a lot of procrastination around placing orders, because I knew when I placed an order, I had to go in and do manual accounting every time.
With your operating expenses and then cost of goods, anything that we're doing that is just time-based, design-based, there's no product, no cost of goods associated. Honestly, that's an easy flow through, because you charge it, you've earned it, money. You move on, you can allocate it, you can spend it. But the minute you start taking people's money for a product that you have to place an order and pay a vendor, maybe not all at one time. So now you got to pay the vendor in installments. And it doesn't come in for 3 to 6 months, which means, honestly, you shouldn't be even recognizing your profit on that for 3 to 6 months. You got money that is sitting in multiple places with multiple payments. And then it becomes like, did I pay them? Did I not pay them? I paid them, but which one did it go to? And you got internal purchase orders and external purchase orders, because you're combining things for a vendor so that you can make minimums and maximums. And the whole thing explodes at that point.
And you have multiple vendors. And to your point, they have different terms of when they collect money. So we were in this position where at the same time we had purchased a new old home that we were renovating. And that was an extremely expensive process to renovate that ourselves. So there was a lot of money we were spending on the personal side and a lot of money coming in that we didn't know exactly what's mine, what's allocated to something else. And to your point, what's an open PO? And, in my corporate job, we would get that list every Monday and we'd see what our open POs were, but no one was giving me that list. I wasn't getting a list of what in my bank account isn't really mine. What in my bank account is really going to somebody else. And I don't know when it's going to them. Like, I don't know when it's coming in and, Kravet's going to charge me the extra 50% on the order. It's delayed. It hit 3 months later and I just completely forgot about it. So all of that was just so much to keep track of, whether it was in Excel or in my head or in any, system we were using. No system was set up to track that.
Yeah, there was really
no one system.
And that's where, when people talk about exploding their business, if that piece is not set up properly, and it is a lot, let's don't
downplay it. Yeah, it's a headache and a half.
It's hairy. And I see a lot of Google spreadsheets, a lot of Excel spreadsheets, And listen, what we're talking about today is separate from a project management, even a product management. You can get some information, but the detail, the depth and the breadth of information, no one system holds it all. That's why everybody keeps yelling and saying, is there one place? And my answer is no, there's just not. There is not one place that holds everything. And here's the trouble with one thing holding everything. It's that you can't be best at all things at one time. A product management / project management system has a functionality. QuickBooks, for example, FreshBooks, Sage, all Peachtree, whatever, all of those accounting, that there is a whole set of rules that go around just the accounting piece, and they shift every single year. And then you've got this middle ground of analyzing it all for the business owner. And so I have yet to find a company that was great at all three of those aspects, because each of them takes such a deep dive to do it well. The resources and the amount of money that would be needed to make a one-stop shop solution is extraordinary. I mean, millions if we're really going to do it well. I know I helped a couple of software companies. We're talking millions of dollars and multiple years. This is not a quick, get it done. It's just not. It's not. Stay on top of it every single minute.
Definitely.
So your pain started coming into, you're starting to do procurement, which means you got POs, you got multiples, you got different payment terms, multiple vendors, keeping up.
Got freight.
Oh my gosh, freight. Storage on top of freight, on top of transport, on top of this isn't already at one time, so we got to go back a second time. You got more players now. You got installers. You got a whole different set of vendors that are coming in to work through that entire phase. So there's so many moving pieces and parts. You also brought up, Michelle, that idea that I love to call is robbing Peter to pay Paul when you're Peter and you're Paul. And so pretty much that's kind of what happened, right? You don't know.
Right.
And this is like why I would love for our joint clients at some point to listen to me on the profit first and then look at the reports, because if we don't separate our funds, I'm pushing for more than two. I got a stack of bank accounts that I would have you do. But it is because of exactly what you said. Our natural propensity is to go and look at the bank account and go, oh, there's money in that bank account, therefore I can spend, without realizing how that money has been allocated to be spent. And I don't care if you say I run 12 reports. The report can't handle unless you go look at the report and say, how much can I spend? But our natural inclination is to go to the bank account. The reports, any reports that we run are secondary and they're supportive. But our natural thought is, some people would go look at the P&L and then they way overspend, because that is not indicative of what's in the bank account. Or they go look at the bank account and see the money and they just think, like you said, oh, that's mine, I can spend it, without thinking this goes to the vendor, this goes to an installer or a support person or something else. And so the money becomes this great big nugget of funds and we spend it 14 times.
Or if it goes to an employee. That was the other thing that happened in 2018. I started to need some help on the design side. I had been in business for a few years and I had to pay somebody to help do some drawing, floor planning, things like that, entry-level design work that I couldn't get to. And I needed to know if I had the money to pay them. So to your point, you go look at your bank account and you're like, there's money there. And you're busy. That's the quick thing. Like, I'll just go look at that.
It's the check off. I looked whether I understood.
Yeah. I made Michelle proud. I looked at my finances. She told me to look at my it's like, no, that's not enough. And especially if you're trying to pay somebody regularly, which is in 2018 where I was at. I was starting to bring on some freelance help, and I eventually wanted that person to be part-time, then full-time. And I didn't really have a good grasp on if I could sustainably keep somebody employed. And you never want to bring somebody on without knowing if you can continue to pay them for the work that they're doing and continue to pay yourself.
Because sometimes it's even just, can I sustain payroll for me? Can I just sustain owner's draw for me? I get a lot of questions sometimes about, I've got all the money sitting in the account. I don't even know if I can take any. It shows up on both sides, not enough and too much that are staying in the company.
Right. And depending on where you're at in your design cycle, as you mentioned, the highs and the lows, which are dead on to what we've experienced with the low January, February, and then the summer months, you need that money to last. So maybe you made a lot in May. May is always a big month for us, but in the summer, it slows down a little bit. COVID year aside. But the money you made in May can help support the business through the slower months. And again, that's the stuff that Alex had a pulse on, and he could kind of from a high level see what I was struggling with, what I wanted to know, what I knew I needed to know, but I didn't know how to collect, analyze, and have it readily available to me when I needed it. Because maybe I didn't need to look at it every day, but some days I did, depending on where I was at with my business. So he was able to devise this system that gave me the information I needed when I needed it.
So Alex, quick question for you. Let's pull you in here. You saw your wife struggling and you went, there's got to be a better way. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the Excel spreadsheet days was really the beginning of what eventually became business measurements. Was the business owner that's doing the plussing and the minusing, just basic Excel knowledge and making it work is exactly what Michelle was doing. And what I could bring to the table, at least then, was taking out of some of the repetitive work and give her a better process. So it was very rudimentary, and it just really started to make the report out of the data. So she would be able to look at a dashboard. And that's really kind of where all of this started, was take out the repetitive work, right? My background is in technology and engineering, and my mind goes to, why can't the computer do this for me? Why is Michelle spending time? Computers can do this. So it really started to just take out some of that simple summarization reporting and, show it to her by week, show it to her by month, by type, whether it's hours or it's product, and start to just kind of throw information at her in a summarized way. And then it really just kind of kept growing. And then I started trying to optimize, systemize more and more pieces of it. And we really just iterated from there. We actually, business measurements, in air quotes, was really in Excel spreadsheets for a long, long time. And it was still manual for a long, long time. Michelle was still typing in information, but we were using that to then present in a better way. And then clearly, like she mentioned, in 2018, when things really kind of got established, we really got ourselves better situated with QuickBooks, better situated with our client management software. And then that's where business measurements kind of blossomed into something different, that even though QuickBooks helped us manage purchase orders and the accounting details, the client management helped us deal with proposals and invoicing, there really still was a gap, even though we kind of, I'll say, blew up all of the existing systems to really establish ourselves in the right way. We still needed something that wasn't available in either QuickBooks or in client management softwares.
Question for you, two things. One, this very much sounds like Sarah Daniele with Mydoma, the way Mydoma started.
Mm-hmm.
She was a designer and she was designing and she was needing project management and product management tools that she didn't have at the time. And so her husband, technology-based, helped her start building that. And then they realized, this is something other people kept going, I want that. How are you doing that? I want that. I'll make sure I link that to our show notes so that people can hear, because I think it's a very, very similar experience there. Alex, did you look into or try creating QuickBooks reports to do all of this before you decided to jump in and build it up? Here's the thing. Michelle said, I can enter it all into Excel, but I'm not an Excel guru. I don't know. My son, they teach so much in college these days, and he doesn't have an IT background. But that boy can create pivot tables. I mean, he can make Excel sing. Yeah. He is so far even advanced from me, who's used it for years because of the way they're taught to use it. Alex, you know how to make Excel sing. But I know that you do. But my question is, did you try setting up the reports in QuickBooks first? Because they do have a report generator and report maker.
Yeah, that's exactly where we started when we said we needed to get our systems better managed, and we stopped doing the manual data entry. And I said, okay, we need to recreate what we had in Excel. We said, okay, now QuickBooks, now client management software. All right, let's get reset up. And I spent time poring over the details of what QuickBooks could report, customizing whatever was quote unquote customizable and what is available to the online QuickBooks user, which is what all of these client management softwares make you use. You end up with kind of a really simplified quote unquote customization, which is great for a user that's going to get in there and be able to, tweak a few things.
Kind of basic reporting.
Exactly. And it was limited where you pretty much couldn't break it. Then I said, okay, well, that's not quite getting me where I wanted to go. We did set up some recurring reports to, automatically send us information, but it had one big drawback. That was you had to be in QuickBooks daily, weekly, monthly, however frequent you could manage, to be associating transactions and bills and invoices with the bank transactions. And that manual work limited how accurate, how updated your financial information was. So Michelle was spending all of her time in the client management software, and I was managing the back end of the QuickBooks. So if I wasn't updating QuickBooks and that report automatically ran, she'd get it. You know what? I didn't get to it this week, so that's actually a week old.
Right.
And it really created this.
It disconnected the data.
Yeah, and it was accurate for what it was updated through, and it had information that was somewhat presentable in the way we wanted it, but we couldn't combine information and really give the dashboard customized to what we cared about. Really what we like to say that, I've heard this phrase a long time ago, that what gets measured gets managed. So
right.
Being able to have on one sheet of paper the things you need to measure about your business measurements, that you can then react to, like Michelle talked about, being able to know weekly incomes. Am I hitting my weekly income? You can see that on a sheet of paper. And then, so I spent time in QuickBooks trying to get to that point. It had some things available, some things were drawbacks. And then the same thing on Ivy, or any other, that's Ivy is what we use, but any other client management software, the ability to run those reports, and those give you lots of data that you can reformat in different ways, but there's no really good way to get a good pulse of your business. You could sit down and dig into the data if you had the time to, but Michelle didn't, and then be able to get some information, but it wasn't the pulse that we needed.
So what's interesting, having, again, a broad spectrum of client base that I work with, different people use the management systems such as Ivy, Mydoma, Designer Advantage, Design Manager, fill in the blank. They use them in different ways. Not everybody uses it the same way. And then based on how they use that system, in turn, it changes potentially how they use QuickBooks. Some use QuickBooks as a generalized repository for income, but a detailed repository for business expenses. And then they use the management system as the detailed repository for client-based income, right? So meaning all of the data, the detailed, minute, product-specific data a lot of times is sitting in their Ivy or their Mydoma. They sometimes roll it up to a high-level number and move it over into QuickBooks. They're not necessarily transferring a line by line of everything. And so what that does is you can't get all the detail from QuickBooks for all of it because it doesn't live there. It's not the data housing for the detail for your invoices, right? It's a roll up, so you can't get all the detail. Conversely, you can't go over to Ivy or Mydoma and get the full-on business picture because it doesn't hold business expenses. It only holds the data that is going back and forth that is associated with a product or a service to a vendor or to your client, right? So you've got this top detail over in one system and the bottom of the P&L detail in another system. And if everything is not aligned at exactly the same time, you can have more confusion in your data analysis if one's updated through Monday and one's updated through Friday because it's getting, bank transfers all the time of data that you don't even know what you're looking at. And so to really be able to dial this in, which I think is what you have done with business measurements, is you're looking at data from both places, wherever it is connected in, based on the same date and the same time and the same everything, so that it is connected and it is a true representation of where your business is at that point in time. Is that correct?
That's exactly it. And to go back to your point of these three different areas, one system can't be everything. So it brings in elements of your QuickBooks P&L, but doesn't bring in all of the nitty-gritty detail of this is revenue dollars were because of hours billed to the client. And these are from a commission, and these are from selling product. And conversely, it doesn't break down every expense into this was, me paying my cell phone bill, or this is buying that furniture. It's giving you a roll-up of that information. They should match. If you go look at QuickBooks, you should be able to see the same total number as you would see on business measurements. But the beauty of what business measurements offers that QuickBooks doesn't is it's just directly getting that bank transaction and not requiring you to categorize it. So as long as, like we talked about at the beginning, you're set up where your business is running on its own bank accounts, every transaction in that bank account is associated with the business, then when you look at those numbers, you're at least seeing the high-level revenue, the high-level expense, and the high-level profit for that day, up through that day in your business. If you deposit the check, you go home, open your computer, And if it showed up in your bank account, it's on business measurements. And it gives you the ability to project reality for the end of that month, the end of the year, through the exact moment, taking on that big expense or you've gotten that big job without having to make sure you're updating QuickBooks or your accountant's updating QuickBooks. And, there's truly some efficiencies and some money to be saved on designer side, right? Where you're not having to have that meeting with your CPA. If that's how you're getting your financial information, how much I made for the year. The goal of business measurements is this is giving you daily information to #know your numbers and really have a pulse every single day of where you stand.
So what's so interesting about that is, for example, if we were to talk about QuickBooks, we can run our reports in a cash accounting or in accrual accounting. So we run in cash accounting. Again, we're only seeing as much as it's tied into bank accounts or as much as we are manually updating it. As we used to say, trash in, trash out. When I was working with a client yesterday and they gave me a report to look at, an Excel report that they had created, the first thing I said to them is up on the top left, I want to see the date it was run. I want to see what you're trying to accomplish on this report. And I want to know where you're pulling the data from, because that matters. You can't just show me a report and I don't know if it came from QuickBooks or did it come from your bank account? Did it come from Ivy or my, where are you pulling the data? Or is it pulled from multiple places? You have to tell me where it's pulled. You have to tell me the date. You have to tell me what the goal of the report is. Like, what are we trying to do here, right? Those are three basics. Okay, but when we are in QuickBooks alone, we are running the majority of our financial reports with a cash or with an accrual. And then we see the differences, but we're having to manipulate in our mind the difference between where I am and where I'm projected to be. So if we're looking at accrual only, it's kind of a longer term projection, if you will, based on if you have everything entered, bills and invoices, because it's not just what you've received in cash. But if we're looking at it only in cash, that's only telling us a snapshot. So we're having to look at every report separately and kind of combine the data and do some analysis in our brain to see the delta or the difference between the two to kind of figure out, am I okay, am I not okay? How am I going to surf this wave, right? What's so cool is when people always ask me, Michelle, how do I manage my cash flow? I will tell them we either have to choose to manage it by the P&L or manage it by the bank account. You got to choose one. You can't go back and forth because they're not always the same. I tend to go off the bank account because that is a true indicator. When we do profit first, we do it off the bank account. We don't do it off your QuickBooks. You may have screwed up QuickBooks. You may not have entered it in QuickBooks. Heck, if you, no offense to QuickBooks Online, but they cannot keep a bank account connected for a long period of time to save their life, right? You know. You talk to any accountant or any bookkeeper, and their biggest thing is trying to keep the stupid bank accounts connected in QuickBooks Online. So they're broken links. I mean, technology is technology. But that's why, what did I say earlier? Our natural way of doing things is go look at the bank account. Go look at the bank account. And so here's what I love about business measurements. From what I have seen and what I have understood, so Alex, if I totally get it wrong, it's on you to correct me here, okay? And I'm going to be wanting to dig in more, but from the going through the process with you and watching it and looking at it, my understanding is that it combines the best of cash and accrual accounting. Meaning it's going out to the bank account and pulling in the numbers, that's our cash. It's doing the projection, which is an accrual type process to show us what is out there so that we not only see where I am, but we see how it's potentially going to play out going forward. And I love that because that is that analysis that we're having to do in our head with two static reports.
You got it exactly right. It definitely is a blend. And that's really came out of the gaps between all of these reports was in some cases you want to look at it with this viewpoint. In some cases you want to look at it with that. And then many times you want to take those two things and mesh them together.
Right. You're right. That is the piece that allows us to take the data and to look at it and then make business decisions. And that's why most of my clients, when they get those reports from their bookkeeper or their accountant, or they generate them to send to me for us to do our monthly review, I ask, I need you to send it to me in cash. I need you to send it in accrual. I need you to send it like this, because we're going to have to smush all that data together to get the answer that we want. It's not an either or, it's the and.
interject for a second because I think that is so important. I remember a few years back, I'm in this interior design Facebook group, and somebody made the comment, another designer, about how their accountant told them they had enough money coming into the business that they could hire an employee. And, congratulations, that's great. But my first thought was, you needed somebody to tell you that it's time to hire. I don't ever want somebody to tell me what I've made, when I can hire, if I should invest in that photo shoot. I don't want somebody else to be responsible for the decisions that I need to make as a business owner. And that's where Alex and I did many, many weekend sessions, deep dives. This didn't just naturally come together. We put hours upon hours upon hours into it over a couple of years. I never want to be in the position where I'm waiting for somebody to tell me what I've made, what money is available to me, and what business decisions make sense for right now. I know what business decisions make sense for me right now because I know where I stand financially. I know that it's the right time to invest in this 3-day photo shoot that I have coming up. I know that potentially we might be hiring somebody at the end of the year and the finances are there if I feel like it's the right time to do that. I don't want to be straddling this line between, I don't know if I have the money to do this. I don't know if the business is secure enough to do this. I want to know this is what I need, and I either have to work towards it to make it happen financially, or the money is there right now and I can pull the trigger and make that decision as I need to.
They might very well want to call and hire me, and they need to know that
That's true.
Right, absolutely.
But I mean, to that point, can I hire a business coach? Can I hire an employee? Can I, COVID has, changed our businesses all in many ways. And I know one thing we're doing is looking to where we can invest this year to make 2021 so much better than 2020. I know what money I have to invest. And I think that the tricky position that designers sometimes find themselves in, either because they're not interested in the numbers or because it's just too time consuming.
Or overwhelming, which is why I have the understanding of your financials, which just teaches you even how to understand the numbers. Then you can look at numbers and analyze numbers. But if you don't even know what to analyze and what to do and how to look at it, it's still, even honestly, your reports, if your report spit out to somebody and they're not taught how to read the report, it's still gobbledygook. There's got to be, I mean, it is. There's got to be an understanding of information for us to be able to analyze and use it to make a decision. But I have quite a few that will say to me when we first start working together, I'll say, how are you doing financially? I don't know. I haven't gotten a report from my bookkeeper. And I'm like, no, nay. Let's go back. You should be able to tell me that. You shouldn't need them to tell you that. So you don't have to be the one doing all the detail. But we are the ones who need to be able to provide the oversight. Alex used the quote that he had heard, what you measure gets managed. And I've always heard you measure what matters. So if you measure what matters and then you manage it, but you've got to know that it matters to even get the information.
It's a multi-step process, but yeah, to your point, you're in control, you're in charge of your business, and you have to be fully in charge. And the point you made earlier when we were talking about how important the finances are to the overall health of the business, it's such a key component. It informs everything that you do. It informs if you should stay open, and I think it's a very crucial aspect to what we're doing. You can't get into the business just for the love of it. It has to feed your lifestyle and it has to provide for you.
Absolutely. So Alex, fill us in our last few minutes together. Tell us all about business measurements. What does it do? We've kind of talked about it from a very practical, tactical standpoint, but tell us a little bit more. It's even more robust than some of the things we've talked about. Share with us about that.
Sure. Base elements and then some add-on pieces as well. We've talked a lot about all the elements. So the real base structure is an automatically updated P&L, balance sheet, and chart of history. So it's a one-page view of your business, both where it is today in cash, where the end of the year will look like, what it will look like for profit and revenue, and your projected taxes, as well as a breadcrumb trail of where you've been over the last 2-3 years, however far back you'd like to look. So really it's a glance of where you're at, quickly digestible. You can get it updated every day, every week, every month, however often you'd like to see it. And it gives you the information you need to know, am I up this month? Am I down this month? Am I projected to the end of the year to be where I want to be? And that requires connection to your bank accounts and QuickBooks to give you that information. On top of that, the other places that it really shines is ability to give you company-wide reports across all of your client-related information. So things like tracking all of your purchase orders in one place. So just it's connected to your client management and is able to see all the purchase orders you've placed. If you're using that diligently, then it can update automatically and you can come back in and say, I've got tracking for this order. This one's at the warehouse, and you can keep all your purchase orders for all your clients in one spot, filter it, pivot it however you would like. That can be customized too. And in the same way, we can have client level reports for profit. So you can see how much revenue you've brought through a particular client, and then how much cost of goods have been associated with that particular client over a certain amount of time. And you can really see where you had to compromise. You had a client that they're a little more price sensitive and you ended up slightly lower on your profit margin than you wanted to be. You can really keep tabs on where you should spend your time as it relates to clients. Depending on which system you're using, whether it's Ivy or Mydoma, there's a few other add-on pieces that can be incorporated, customizations, but it's really primarily that one glance P&L sheet with balance sheet and history, and then the client level reports, whether they're purchase orders or profitability per client.
So Alex, you have totally geeked out on all of that. And that's awesome.
Yes, yeah. It's one of the things that really sparked a passion in me watching Michelle struggle with the manual data entry was really going off the deep end on how do I make computers do all of it? How do I not do anything? How does the designer not do anything? And it seeing as I really pieced all this together and it's really formalized over the last year, how does this just run? And it's like, I can not look at our report for, Michelle's checking it weekly, monthly, but it's so satisfying to come back later and know that this is just run smoothly and it's given the information to the people that need it. So I may not hear from someone for a designer who's using business measurements for a week, a month, 2 months, 6 months. I go back in and I can see that all that time, they've been getting profitable, useful information. And it runs and it's extremely satisfying knowing that the tools that we built for Michelle, we can give to other designers in a way that helps them grow, helps them make the right next step in their business. Quite honestly, react to downturns in their business the moment they happen versus 3-6 months down the line when they're knee deep in it, when they could have had the information sooner.
So did you get your wife back?
Yeah, time-wise.
Did you get like your wife back? I mean, she was saying that she was working till like 11 o'clock or into the night, and you were like, seriously, come on.
He got some of his time back too, because I drag him to Panera every weekend and we'd sit down for hours. And I'm like, all right, help me analyze all of this.
Can also be a marriage saver. See, you
Yeah.
said in marketing.
You can go to brunch without your laptops. When we can all go to brunch again, leave your laptop behind. You don't have to talk about the business finances over egg sandwiches.
Right. I mean, I know we're being silly about it, but it's true.
It's true. It's really true.
Reclaim your time. To reclaim the way that you live is important. So it's not even just the reclaiming of all the manual entry and the analysis or not even knowing what you need to look at. It's also reclaiming your peace of mind to be able to make decisions based on the data. Because again, you got junky data, you potentially make a junky decision. You got really good, great data that you know how to interpret, know what to do, then you can make a well-informed decision.
Right. And not spend hours and hours digesting it and agonizing over the information that you're looking at. It's, to Alex's point, it's a snapshot. It's a quick glance at where you're at, what the health of your business is. And from there, it's up to you to agonize over, am I ready to hire? Like financially, you are, but are you at the place that you feel like you can train somebody? That's a whole other decision. But being able to have the financial clarity has just been so beneficial over the last couple of years.
I love it because sometimes when you look at the data, it's almost like the answer is right in your face. It's presented. You don't even have to chew it up to figure it out. It's just there. And you're like, that was easy.
I shouldn't have stressed over that.
I know
like
my clients a lot of times will say, how did you know that within 3 minutes? I've been looking at this forever. And I'm like, this. And they're like, oh, that's it. Yep, that's it. So I love that we have this available. Thank you both so much for sharing and telling us about the journey to build business measurements, and then also how it can impact a business and impact a life, impact your whole life by reclaiming your time and reducing stress.
And I just want to thank you for having us on. And I listen to your podcast every week. And I think the thing that's really fantastic is we like talking about money, but not everybody does. And I think you do a really nice job of making the conversation comfortable.
Oh, thank you.
approachable. And I know you've been talking about certain points in our business. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier, around that 2018 time, I had also downloaded that checklist, the financial checklist off of your website, and used that to kind of get me in gear, where you had ratings for like where you stood with everything. And I looked at that and I saw areas where I could improve. So that really helped kick things into high gear for us. So I love that you talk about money and you don't shy away from it, because to your point, we need to talk about it to be able to make those informed decisions. And it's a process, but I think you do a nice job every week guiding people through that.
Thank you, Michelle. That checklist is out on my freebies page. So if anybody goes to scarletthreadconsulting.com and goes under freebies, you can still download that. I recommend that you do it at the beginning of the year and that you do it mid-year, because you can sometimes, to Alex's point earlier, take your eyes off what needs to be measured and realize when we kind of spend our attention fixing one thing, we can sometimes let go of something else. And for some of my clients, we go through it every quarter just to see, especially as we're learning and we're growing and we're trying to look at and measure more and more things. But
well, it was so helpful, because I thought I was maybe a rock star in some areas where I wasn't, or found out I had strengths that I didn't quite understand at the time.
It's empowering.
So yeah, I believe we did at the beginning of the year. It totally is. And it's eye-opening. And I think it's a great place to start. If you're not comfortable talking about money and you're not sure where you're at, but you know you should be somewhere, you should have a good pulse on it. I just found it to be beneficial. And I dragged Alex into it when I was taking it. I was like, let's do this together. So another marriage bonding tip.
Marriage bonding tip. That's right. I'm all about helping there if I can help it. But so tell us, is it a Facebook group that everybody can go to?
Yeah, so there's a private Facebook group, Business Measurements for Designers. There's also a page, but the page just literally pushes people to the group. So yeah, go join that. And there's lots of information and videos on the specifics of the things we've talked about today. Breakdowns that really get into the details of what are the reports you can get, what can you see, and really gives you a better picture of it. But that's the best place to get the information.
Right. Michelle and Alex, thank you so much. This has been a really fun conversation. I felt like we could sit here for another couple of days and keep talking and geeking out over all the numbers. But
totally.
I appreciate your time, your sharing. And Alex, we're so glad that you joined Michelle so that we can have this available for the whole industry.
Yeah, we're excited to keep it growing and getting everyone the information that helps them grow.
That sounds great. Well, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm so thankful to Michelle and Alex for such a great conversation. I seriously could have sat and just dug in even more and more and more. Using empirical data to make decisions in your company is so much better than just working on gut instinct. I love, I guess you could also call it geeking out, working with business owners who want to know and own the numbers of their business, because having this info is exactly what we need to be able to scale. You can watch my masterclass on the Aim with Intent methodology that I teach. Go to www.scarletthreadconsulting.com/landing-page-aim-masterclass. And then reach out so I can help you grow the business you want. And as I often say, remember, profit doesn't happen by accident.